Yo.
What's up, man?
Not much. Just probably going to be talking to a few hundred people today. How about you?
I'm doing great, actually. I'm doing really, really good.
I see you're wearing a MAGA hat in your profile picture. I know
It's a
this
good
means
way to start off a
we'll have lots to
conversation,
talk
usually.
about. What's up? Are you participating in the traditional format of the call-in? Do you have a contention you would like to share with me? A disagreement?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I was telling Hyena, or that's the username, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize if that's not how you pronounce it, but
That's close enough.
anyways, yeah. So, so I was wanting to talk about your thoughts on systemic racism in America.
Yeah, sure.
So I know obviously we're going to disagree on this because I believe that systemic racism in America is non-existent
Oh,
because
yeah, we
of the
might.
fact. Yeah, so I believe it's non-existent mainly because the fact that it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And I do have history to back my point up if you would like me to go into that.
Sure. So let's get right into it. So, why don't you make your argument and then we'll get to it point by point.
Sure, sure. So basically, my argument is that the system doesn't actually harm anybody of a specific race. Generally, it usually comes down to culture and person by person basis. So why I say culture is mainly because it's descendant of what was formerly known as cracker culture, but is now modernly known as ghetto culture necessarily.
So, okay, so we
And
can simplify this a little bit. So, essentially, your argument is black people get arrested more because they behave worse.
I mean, yeah, I would
Yeah,
probably
okay,
I'd probably say
we don't
that.
need to. Okay, so let's get right into this. So, black people and white people both consume marijuana at roughly the same rate, but black people get arrested nearly 4 times as often for that. So, I don't know what restrictions you think police are subject to being held to, but if it is a distaste for the behavior of a community which leads to a 4 times disproportional arrest rate, I would say that's pretty evident of bias, especially since this bias seems to carry forward to black people regardless of their behavior in communities that are not as ghetto as, I guess, what you would associate with the typical black community.
So I'm actually really glad you brought up that source because I love talking about this one. So basically, that experiment was actually asking people basically how often they use marijuana on a yearly basis. It didn't go down to monthly. It didn't go down to weekly. When you actually look at statistics that go down to a monthly basis of using marijuana and weekly basis of using marijuana, whites are actually using. I mean, whites are actually using it at a lower rate than blacks on a monthly and weekly basis.
On what
Um,
level?
Oh, what do you mean, like on frequency of using it in that?
Yeah, like
No.
1.2 times as much, 4 times as much? Like, what's the rate?
It's like I think on the percentage rate, I think it was about nearly 20% more for monthly, and then the weekly was nearly 30% more than whites
Okay, so that does
in
not
it on
explain a
monthly and
four
weekly.
times
But
difference.
also, but the 4 times difference also comes down to the fact that it's been proven off of surveys taken from marijuana users that white people usually are more prone to use marijuana with people that they are closer to and within secluded homes instead of open areas, whereas black people are more prone to do it with people that they are non-associated with, or yeah, would be more prone than a white person to do it with people that they're non-associated with and in public areas.
Um, do you have any studies on that?
Yeah, let me pull up the statistic
So you
or
think
the
that like black people just like are stupid and they just keep smoking in public areas?
no, I don't think that I wouldn't I'm not considering this on like an unintelligent, oh, well, that's just a, dumb person. I'm just basing this on the fact that they're going to be, I think that off of this survey, it proves pretty much that they're more prone to in these ghetto areas do it in a more public area with people that just live in the neighborhood, but they don't necessarily know that person.
Well, I would.
Uh,
Well, wait. So what is that? Not knowing the person doesn't mean that person's a cop. I don't think undercover cops are typically dressing up like 16-year-old like
I'm
high
not saying it's an
schoolers.
undercover cop, though. I wasn't implying that. I'm just saying that if that person isn't necessarily trustworthy, then how are you going to trust them by doing a criminal activity with them?
Do you think this might have something to do with the fact that stop and frisk rates are wildly disproportional based on race?
I don't think that I don't think that it's race though, because honest to goodness, like even stop and frisk. You look at stop and frisk, and people like to say, well, it's just because the cops patrol the black neighborhoods more often.
It's because they
But
select black people because they're racist.
no, it's
The
necessarily
disproportionate selection of black people for stop and frisk laws in the states that employ them is massive. This is not a culture thing. This is regardless of neighborhood. Even with driving stops, which have nothing to do with culture, unless you think every black person drives around with like the low rider and the suspension that bounces while playing gangster rap or whatever. Like I guess that would be like a black culture car.
well,
But
that's a
even
poor, yeah, that's a very poor stereotype.
yeah. Well, I've seen black people drive around. They look pretty much like white people driving around, but they still get stopped way more often for searches and for arrests, regardless of disproportionate rates of traffic laws being violated, which don't really seem to have that much to do with race. Looks like pretty much nobody respects driving laws in this country. I mean, there's a higher like average conviction rate for black people in the criminal justice system. Black people get higher sentences for the same amount of priors in the same crime committed. The amount of data suggesting that the criminal justice system is discriminatory against black people, not people of blank culture, but black people, is overwhelming. To ignore the plurality of data on this subject is to engage in delusional thinking. And I don't know why a person would want to ignore all that data unless they had a motivated reason to not want to believe racism exists in this country.
It's it's not. It's literally not ignoring the data. It's literally counteracting that data and exposing the flaws within that
Then
data.
why
Just like the
then why
conviction
do
rate one that you just brought up.
Oh yeah?
So the conviction rate one you brought up does not account for the weapon used in those crimes.
Yes it
So
does. Same crimes with same priors.
same crimes, but yeah, okay, same crimes doesn't mean that it's the same weapon.
Do you have
You
any
realize that,
evidence
right?
do you wait, do you know what
I can
study you're
murder some.
referring
I can
to?
get second degree murder as just as a black person would, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we both used a machete
The
to do
weapon
it.
doesn't determine the amount of culpability necessary for committing the crime. If you commit a first or second degree murder with a tool or with a gun, it doesn't make a difference. It's the exact same
It,
crime.
it is the exact same crime. You're right, but whenever you're actually coming down to the weapon used, it's going to sway the actual jury to decide. Oh yeah, well that's probably a more heinous crime. You know, more heinous crimes would probably be. I mean, it's going to still be second degree murder if you chopped up someone's body or if you shot him with one bullet in the head.
Yeah, wait, how is it more heinous to shoot a person in the head than it is to chop up a person's body? I
No,
don't
I'm
know.
not saying. I mean the opposite way around. The chop up someone's body is going to be obviously more heinous, but just because it's the same crime doesn't mean that they're on the same level.
So wait, so you just gave a counterexample where a knife is more heinous than a gun. So how does the gun usage? Do you have any do you even know what study I'm referring to? Do you have any evidence that like not only does the weapon used affect sentencing, but also that this study is failing to account for that?
So okay, well let me. I'm not sure the exact source on that study, but I have read that study one time.
Um, what study?
The conviction rate one. The conviction rate on African Americans.
But so do you have any like counter evidence on it, or
Well,
you're just saying
literally
like, well, they didn't
the
account
main
for
premise.
this one thing that shouldn't actually factor into the sentencing length?
Yeah, well, that's the thing though. I'm going to discredit that source because the fact that they didn't account for the weapon, which has everything to do
No,
with the case itself.
you need to prove that would be like saying like you don't like the results of the study, so afterwards you're like, okay, well they didn't account for what hat the person wore to court. Do they have any data on the hat? The hat can make a difference for jury like convictions. You need to
Okay,
provide
but
evidence that the A that was
how
overlooked and
legitimate
B
are source? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
you have to provide evidence that A, they overlooked that fact, and B, that fact actually plays into the conviction rates. But in the absence of that data, the evidence that black people are disproportionately convicted is pretty overwhelming, especially since a lot of those convictions are for nonviolent offenses, drug offenses. Or are you going to tell me, like, they smoked weed in a more heinous way than white people or something?
Well, I already gave the example on the usage and how frequent the usage is and where and how the usage is being conducted.
But you haven't given me
But
evidence for it. We're talking about convictions now, not about arrests.
okay, but it doesn't matter though because truthfully speaking, whenever back to the convictions, you know, but on the violent crimes before we get to the non-violent crimes, what I was going to say before that is Yeah, you can obviously discredit a source if the variables haven't been controlled within the source. A source, obviously, a study that is going to be fully conducted is going to be discredited if all the variables are not controlled within the experiment itself.
Well, no, it's actually an extremely well respected and well cited piece of research that's used in criminal justice studies, criminology, and sociology. Do you have any evidence that there is a counterfactual that would negate the validity of this study? Because you can't just say, "Oh, here's a confounding variable they might have missed," without A, proving they missed it, and B, proving it matters. Because in theory, like, the
Okay,
weapon used should not affect sentencing. If you commit the crime, you commit the crime. Like, that's it.
well, yeah, in theory it shouldn't, but it's you have to realize it's humans on the jury. Humans are going to let their emotions control their decision making.
But I
You
need
know,
I need
so
evidence to the claim. Do you have a study on that, or have you seen a
but
study
do you do
on
you do
that?
you really do you really need evidence for human
Oh, I
actions?
see. So you saw the data and you didn't like it, so you imagined that there was a problem with the data.
Imagine there's no imagination going into this.
Do you
Literally,
have evidence?
I presented you with a variable that they didn't control
How
for,
do you
and
know?
now you're saying
How do
that
you know
just
they
has
didn't
to be.
control for it? And how do you know it's relevant? There are tons of variables
There's
they didn't control
nowhere
for what
nowhere in
hat.
that study nowhere in that study does it say that the two crimes comparing between the white man and the black man had the exact same weapon used
They
within the
said
violent
same
crime.
crimes, and
Nowhere.
they describe what it means by same crimes. Do you have evidence that the weapon used meaningfully influences the conviction rate and the sentencing time for violent crimes? Additionally, do you have proof that it was not accounted for in the study? And additionally, do you have proof that that conviction rate difference for weapon used would actually be in your favor? Because I have a feeling, and this could just be my personal bias, but if we're going to look at 2 degrees of murder one of them done by a firearm and one of them done by a knife, I have a feeling that the knife would actually be more heinous in general. Guns are a far more effective, utilitarian, quick, and painless way of ending a human life than any other weapon we have available. That's why the military
Well,
gets them.
that's what I yeah, well, yeah, that's what I pushed for in the original statement was just the fact that obviously a jury is going to be much easier to convict someone who chopped up a body than someone who's going to just shoot
Do you
one
think
bullet in the
black
head.
people like disproportionately chop up? I thought black people were the gun crime committers. That was my understanding. Wouldn't they be more likely to use the less heinous weapon?
Yes, they're going to be more likely to use I would say so. I don't know that for fact,
Well,
but
then
I
why are
would
they
say
getting
so on the
sentenced for
general
longer?
stereotype. I would probably well that's the thing though. There's no source that I've seen that actually comes down to the weapons, and that's why I'm saying that we actually need one that proves that before we can
No,
just
wait,
jump to
no. That's
conclusions.
not how data works. You don't find a study that has a conclusion and then say, well, it didn't control for this variable, and then just ignore it. You would need to prove that the
Okay,
variable.
have you actually written a study before? Have you actually done like a full experimental research and
Yes.
did a research paper on it?
Yes, I have a
So
degree.
okay, so the premise of doing an actual study at the end of it or near the conclusion, you're
Everything
going
you're
to
about to
write
say
the
is
things
going to
that
be
you could
wrong.
further expound upon. Or the things that could actually prevent your study from being correct, or the things that maybe you didn't account for, those things are actually going to be what comes down to if that study should be considered all premier legitimate above all. And
No.
that's really what it's going to come down to.
That is
Yes,
that no, no, no.
because if you're
Every
going to
single study will end with a statement on how this research could be expanded. That does not mean that we ignore the study that has been presented.
okay, sure, I'm not saying that we ignore. What I am saying
You
though
are
is it
you're
shouldn't be
literally
taken
saying
for
that.
full validity.
No, no, no,
I'm
no, it
saying that it
should.
shouldn't be
No,
taken
that's
for
how
full
research
validity.
works. If every single study ends with the statement, here's how we can add to this research, here's what we can do more, here are the limitations. Every
So you
single
believe
wait, wait, wait.
every
Every single study will say that. So, given that fact, we should probably, unless being given evidence to contradict the outcomes of a study, adopt the positions of well cited, well researched, peer reviewed studies.
so any peer-reviewed study you believe, even if you think it's staunchly wrong, if you look in that study and it's peer-reviewed and it looks valid, that it has to be right because that's what you're coming down to.
No. Wait, are you like an unironic anti intellectual? You're literally
No,
arguing
I'm
like,
not.
well, the scientists say one thing, but do you just believe that when you think it's wrong? I don't give a fuck what you think, bro. The data uniformly agrees that black people are discriminated against in the criminal justice system. I really don't care like if that hurts your feelings or if that's inconvenient for you. This is plurality. in criminology. Nobody disagrees with this. The argument's over how do we address it. So for you to come here and attempt to rebuke the plurality of data by saying like, well, they didn't control for this one thing which doesn't actually supposed to affect prison sentences, so let's throw it out. That's like pretty weak. You would need to have data. Here's USSC.gov's research on racial disparity in the criminal justice system, which acknowledges that there is currently no evidence to disprove the idea that black people are not discriminated or that are discriminated against. So like this is plurality. Even the government acknowledges it. It's just not argued against. Why are you so interested in ignoring the fact that racism exists? Do you really think there's no racism in this country?
No, I don't. That I not once have I even hinted to that. What I do say is that the system itself is not racist.
Okay, wait. What is
Because
the system
truthfully
made up
speaking,
of?
are you trying to imply that the system's made up of that? It's like a leading question. You're trying
Earlier,
to
you said
make.
the jury has biases which can lead to discrimination when it comes to the severity of a weapon sentence. You don't think that biases and racial prejudice can lead to juries having disproportionate, prejudices against like black defendants? You
Well,
acknowledged
sure,
individual
maybe,
bias
sure.
earlier.
Well, yeah, yeah, I did acknowledge that, and I'm not gonna try to say that there's never gonna be a racist white person that's gonna get on a jury, you know. And if we can find some way to exclude them, I'm all for that. But you cannot say that that's the premise behind convictions. You cannot say that that one alone thing means the entire system is racist.
Never
The
said it was that
system's
one alone thing.
racist.
It's everything. It's again, it's the plurality of data available in the subject. It's the fact that judges are far more likely to give sentences with or convictions with mandatory minimum sentences to black people than they are to white people. 75% more likely for the same crime, of course. Sorry, I don't know if they account for weapons in whether or not the judge, mind you, not the jury, the legal professional, assigns a conviction with a mandatory minimum over a regular conviction. It's the jury. It's the fact that police have been proven to have a racial bias. Like it's across the board. I mean, just nobody disagrees with this. There are like Ben Shapiro types who try to pretend this isn't the case because delegitimizing the concerns of black people and other people of color is like fun for them, I guess, or like it serves the interests of their billionaire benefactors. But it's just not contended with, I guess. I don't know. What I'm interested in most is you. Like, why do you think that racism isn't an issue? Like,
Well, I would like to respond. There's like a lot of points you've made,
yeah,
and
go
so I'd
for it.
like to
Sorry.
try to respond here to at least some of them because obviously there's so much I can't cover it all. But no, here's the premise. Here's the premise of what the way I have my stance. I'm not like a Ben Shapiro thumper. I'm not like a Steven Crowder worshiper, you know. But what I am interested in is actually doing the research on how we came to be in this situation. And I am also part of the premise that it's innocent until proven guilty on the system itself. You know, so we can't just claim that the system is guilty of systemic racism without looking at
But it's
actual
been proven
history and
guilty.
deciding. Oh, I know you keep on saying that it's been proven guilty because you have the sources.
Federal investigations into police departments. The FBI has said that white supremacists have infiltrated the police. They've been saying that for over a decade. Every single like criminological study on the processing of the criminal justice system has turned out the I literally just gave you a government link saying no evidence has been provided to indicate black people are not discriminated against in the criminal justice system. It's been proven.
Okay, and you know, well, I'm not one here that's going to sit and say, oh, well, it's impossible for a white supremacist or racist to become a police officer or get elected as some kind of
Why are you
official,
pivoting? I'm
you know,
not
or
saying
be.
individuals. I'm saying the system is racist. I mean, I just like again,
Well,
if the government
I know
acknowledges it,
you said you literally just gave the example of white supremacists and police, so I'm not pivoting. I'm going off of exactly what you just said.
do you think the FBI would make a report warning about white supremacists infiltrating the police if they were saying one person in the police is a white supremacist? Or do you think they would make that claim if there was a more systemic, like widespread problem? Do you think it
They
might
would
be a
make
little
that. They would
disingenuous?
make that claim if it was anything above five.
So you think if there were 6 racists in the police, of the 700,000
If
police
there was
officers in the United States,
because the claim that you made is not just racist. You said white supremacists. So the claim that's the
racist
claim,
white
right?
people tend to be white supremacists. What do you think they are? Like black supremacists?
I would not claim that because I mean, a lot of elderly people are racist because of the time that they lived in. They're not necessarily white supremacist.
Wait, yeah, they are.
But
Yeah, they're racist and they're white supremacist. Yeah. Like, what do you think they're like? Fuck whiteys. I love Hispanic people. Is that like the average Fox News viewer? Like, they're pretty racist against non-white people. They're white supremacists.
no, I wouldn't consider that a white supremacist. I would consider a white supremacist someone who's like prejudiced against all races other than white.
Yeah, that's yes. The average Fox News viewer. Yeah, like the
No, and
boomers.
and no, the average Fox News the average Fox News viewer is not someone who's prejudiced against anyone who's not white.
Oh no, yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
I would
The
well, then you're
every
just
Republican
misguided.
and most Democrats are probably some variant of white supremacists, but your side has it way worse. It's a pretty collective
Well,
box,
yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
say.
I could see where you would say that from a radical standpoint, but you're totally misguided to think that just because like average Fox News viewer is prejudiced against, I mean, this is totally off the point anyways, getting on this point of, white supremacists,
No, no,
but
it's on point
uh
because you don't think
you're
racism is really like a thing. You think it's like a very magical thing. There are some like super extra evil people that are racist, but most people are genuinely good. It's not really how it works. Back during the days when we were a slave state, the average person in the South was a good old fashioned, God loving, Bible thumping, farm boy who also believed blacks were animals that need to be kept in chains. Racism and being an active member of society are not mutually exclusive. And while today things may have gotten better, the fact remains that, in all likelihood, the majority of the people who participate in our political system carry some pretty severe racial biases. I come from the radical position of not being a racist. That's the position that I hold.
Well, and I understand that. I understand I understand your radical left, and you have these presuppositions about society. However, that's not really the case when it really comes down to the average like the average elderly person who grew up civil right grew up through all that and everything. I would say the average white like racist person would have a bias against black people, but it's not exclusive. I think it's probably more exclusive to black people. It's not like it's covers all races
Yes,
of
the
anything
Republican
but
Party,
white.
known
It's
lovers of
not. I wouldn't say it's
Hispanics.
that. I would say that against Hispanics. Are you really gonna try to make that judgment based off of what?
Is that a joke? I mean, we can talk about the fear mongering done
No, no,
against like illegal
I'm being
immigrants
dead
from the
serious. I
South.
mean, are you? I know you're probably going to lean into Trump wall, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I mean,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Preempting the argument doesn't make it any less. But yeah,
uh
100%. Trump comes up fear mongering about rapists and murderers coming over the border, deploys the military because of refugees coming up from the South that never even fucking made it to our country. Talks about shithole countries. Builds or like continues to man and then bolsters the concentration camps we have on the border. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally. Also, the like
concentration
Mexican,
camps.
they are by definition concentration camps and have been acknowledged to be so by the Holocaust, like historical, society. Like yeah,
Do you on it? Do you genuinely think
yes,
any person who was in the Holocaust would compare it to that?
yeah, they yes, and they did. Yeah, so yes, comma, and they did. Yeah, 100%. Was it as bad as Auschwitz-Birkenau? No, of course not. But they're both concentration camps.
Well, if I guess if they made that definition, then it would obviously be more credible than my definition of it. But yeah, no, I would never compare it to the level of any kind of Auschwitz or even near that, honestly. Um, we're not killing people, we're not torturing people,
Well,
we're holding them.
people are dying, and people are right
We're
now.
holding them in we're holding them in cages with TVs and hand
Wait.
sanitizer, and we're holding
Holding free human beings in cages, like in cold desert environments with minimal protection, like meets the UN definition of like unfair treatment of civilians. It meets the definition of torture. Additionally, right now they're using some kind of like viral gassing agent in the camps. They're literally gassing people right now, and it's causing respiratory issues for the people there.
I did hear about that. The respiratory. I heard something about the agent that they were using. If that's true, because I haven't looked into it yet. If that's true, I totally condemn that, and like that's horrible.
But
I'm not going to stand up and say that was okay.
you're okay with people being held in cages in freezing desert climates with like little electric blankets they can toss over them and their four kids, like for no reason other than they met the legal requirements for coming up to the border to declare asylum?
I'm okay with any person who doesn't want to follow our law. Yeah.
Wait, they followed the law. You have to enter the country before you can declare asylum.
Yeah, but you realize that these people aren't even trying. These
Yeah,
people
no, they
aren't
are.
even trying to become a citizen.
Wait,
They're
wait,
not
they can't.
trying.
Wait, how can they be?
Oh, they are. Oh,
Wait,
they
how
are.
can they
Go
be
ahead.
trying
Go
to?
ahead.
Wait. How can they be trying if they're arrested at the border? What the fuck does that mean? They literally followed the legal UN certified process.
If they're being arrested at the border, then there's obviously other implications that go into that.
No, there isn't. They were just
You do
arrested
realize
for
that,
coming
right?
over the border.
We're
Wait,
not just arresting
you
we're not just
realize?
arresting Hispanics for just coming across the border.
Yes, we are. You realize the UN has condemned the United States for not abiding by the process by which we allow asylum. Wait, are you just like ignorant? You should read up on this. That's literally what's happening. They're literally just rounding people up during the crossing and putting them in camps, even though they have a legal right to do that. The asylum process requires that you enter the borders of the country that you wish to declare asylum in. Many of them came over legally with permits and have had those permits stolen by the state, never to see them again. Many of them have been separated by their children. All of these meet definitions of the UN of unhumane treatment of like civilian population. Like this is just a fact. This isn't like a lefty bias thing. This is just what's happening. You wouldn't get this if you watch Fox News though, which is why I'm not surprised that their viewers are so okay with what's going on down there. They just see like the AOC went down and cried the defense like on loop for 24 hours a day. Wait, you're laughing, but you're like defending the inhumane treatment of people who are legally following the guidelines to declare asylum.
I'm defending the law that you find unjust.
Wait, it's not a law. Again, the U.S. is breaking international law by doing this. So there's no law that like defends you on this. Wait, why are you laughing? Wait, do you think it's funny to be like a fascist?
I think it's funny. I think it's funny that your radical biases are
what radical bias
hindering you from seeing reality.
Wait, what bias? What have I said that is factually untrue? Is that what you say when you realize that you don't have any arguments to contend with mine?
No, I'm not trying to pivot from, me not being able to defend my point. What I am saying is that you're holding the UN to a higher standard than the United States government.
No, I'm not. I'm just holding everyone to the same international standards of treatment of asylum takers that the US agreed to follow. They said they would follow these rules, and they don't.
But as a nation, we don't have to. We can say we want to, and then not.
Wait, so you're okay with the U.S. breaking international law to incarcerate and put in concentration camps asylum seekers? You backed off the law argument, and now we're just on fuck them. Like that's the new argument.
I backed up the law.
With
I backed up the law, and you're saying, well, they're going against the law.
With what? Wait, what law? What law allows them to do that? What law allows them to do that?
I'm not saying literally. You're putting words in my mouth right now. I never said that the law allows them to do to take the asylum seekers straight off the border into prison.
Yeah,
I never said the law allows that. No, I said the law doesn't allow people who are not trying to get citizenship, nor are asylum seekers. We don't allow that. That's law.
What are you talking about? We're talking about asylum seekers on the border. You initially said, well, if they're breaking the law by coming over, but they're not breaking the law by coming over. And now you're saying you're okay with breaking international law.
I'm fine with breaking international law if the asylum seekers are not legitimate.
What does that mean?
Because anybody can claim asylum and not actually need it.
Yeah, and so then they get entered into the process and denied if that's what the U.S. wants to do. You don't put them in concentration camps.
So we hold them until the process is finished.
No, not in concentration camps. And these people haven't been admitted into the process. They're just being kept in camps. This is not part of determining whether or not they're being admitted for asylum.
Well, if they're actually, which you know what,
how do you determine
I'm not
that?
sure what kind of.
Oh, I know. You're very eager to justify them being kept in camps, but there is no legal or moral justification for this. It's just bad.
There's moral justification if there is moral justification if these people don't have a reason to claim asylum.
What do you mean?
Asylum is just the easy way.
Then just deny them asylum.
Just the easy way of saying.
Then just deny them asylum.
Oh.
Enter them into the process.
I'm fine with us denying them asylum and sending them back. I'm fine with that.
But we aren't allowed to keep them in camps.
I'm not a proponent of us keeping them here. I prefer them to just be sent back.
That's not a part of the legal process. Wait, you want to send asylum seekers back?
If they're not legitimate.
Yes.
If they're not legitimate.
Wait. Hold on, really quickly, because I can tell you're jumping all over the place right now. Okay, so here's the process: asylum seekers come to our country, enter our border, and declare themselves asylum seekers at the nearest legitimate legal institution. There are plenty of institutions they're allowed to do this at. Then the United States historically gives them temporary visas while their credentials are assessed by the US government, and then they're either approved or denied. Not many are approved. We're pretty stringent in this country. The rest of them are, I mean, they go back. It's not great, but they go back. And a few of them are allowed to stay. What is happening right now is everyone who is at the border, even some of whom have visas, are being put into concentration camps which violate UN humane treatment of civilian guidelines, are not being admitted into the process, so we can't even verify whether or not their claims for asylum should or should not be accepted. So we have deviated from the process in every conceivable way.
Do you or do you not believe that these people have other implications that are causing them to get, put in what you would identify as concentration
That's not a
camps?
wait, what do you mean?
Okay, do you genuinely believe that the vast majority of these asylum seekers who are being put in the holding places, then do you actually think that these people don't have any other reason
What do you
for
mean
being there?
any other reason? What does that mean? Every asylum seeker has many reasons why they want to travel. Every one.
I'm not
Mexican or
talking
otherwise.
about traveling. I'm talking about them actually being put in what you would consider the concentration
It's
camps or
been
the holding
defined as one,
places.
yeah.
Okay. So if you want to call it that, that's fine. You have every right to. But
It's
if
I mean,
if you
you
actually
use like your snowflake like false definition if you want, but the actual the people who determine these things have determined it. Historians, sociologists. If the Holocaust like advocates are the ones like
Yeah,
agreeing
but
that it is.
on a general basis, no one calls it a concentration
No,
camp
no, no,
other
no,
than
no,
you
wait.
and
Sorry.
maybe
Wait.
the
No, no, no.
radicals.
Wait. Hold on. Republicans don't. Academics do. And people on the left do. But the academics are typically the ones who get to decide whether or not a camp meets the historical and political characteristics of a concentration camp. It's not something politicians come up with. We usually defer to academia to come up with these definitions. Academia is very left leaning. I wonder why. Anyway, concentration camp, go.
Okay. So, just to avoid anything you just said, because I know that brings us on a different topic. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, as far as immigration goes, if a person or family comes to the border, wants to claim asylum, right, and you're claiming that some of these asylum seekers are not even allowed to, get in the acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
acceptance route, right? You're saying that?
Yes. Or pretty much like none of them are. Like they're just being kept at the camps or being turned away, yeah.
Okay. So if they're coming there and they're not even allowed, they're just already locked up before they've even had the chance to go, which I still believe is the vast minority until I see something that proves me differently.
What do you think? Wait. What do you
Then
think the majority of the people in the camps are? Like, how do you think they got there?
I think the majority of the people in the camps are either people who were trying to cross the border illegally, or B, they're people who had other reasoning to be locked up. Like either uh, charges, drugs, illegal items like
Sure.
maybe weapons and
So let's
such.
go over this really quickly. So first of all, no, the concentration camps are not being used as a prison. So your second point is factually incorrect. They are not just being like, oh, you've been caught with a criminal offense, we're throwing you in there. That's just not the case. Second of all, how can you tell the difference between people just trying to cross illegally and people who are declaring asylum if you don't let the people declare asylum?
Because I think the country has every right to decide if someone's seeking for asylum is actually worthy of getting that chance
Yes,
to
and you
to
and you
chance to claim asylum.
wait, you think the country should decide whether or not a person even gets to declare asylum? How does the country
Based
decide
upon
who's an
based up
illegal immigrant and who's an asylum seeker?
because basically the way I would judge that is if someone's coming across the border and you've sat them down, you talk to them or whatever, you talk to them when they're across the border. I don't know, however they would go about that, because I'm no border official.
That is not what happens to the border
Whenever
right now.
Oh, well, I realize that's not what happens at the border in most regards, but obviously they sit down and talk to these people before they throw them in a cage. So,
Wait, what do you mean by
anyways,
sit down, talk to these people? Like, are these children yours? Do you have a weapon? What do you mean? Do you think these people are being asked, like, what are your intentions for entering the United States? Do you have any family, or like what interview do you think they're being given? Do you think they get like a cup of coffee too?
It's not like an interview. What it is these people have to give their claims. It's not we don't have to
Yeah,
ask them
they
anything.
no, they do. Yeah, they try to declare asylum. They're supposed to do that at a legal like center, like a townhouse or a police station or something like that.
Exactly, exactly. And you're claiming that these people are thrown in cages before they even had the amount of time to go there and do that. Because
Yes.
that should be the first thing that you're doing when you're crossing the border,
Yes,
if
but
you're
you
really
can't
wanting
get
to
the
stay.
yes, but you can't get there if the cops get to you first. They capture you and they put you in the camps. They are not being given time to declare asylum as per the legal international guidelines of asylum seeking.
And so I would love to see the numbers on this because I would love to see how many people are legitimately
What do you
like
mean
running into this.
legitimately?
I'm talking about you're giving a hypothetical right now is what it is. You're giving a hypothetical here
No, I'm just
that
telling you what's
I
happening.
that
What
are
do you mean
there's no.
legitimately?
I'm talking about an actual number of people that this is happening to. Legitimate number. Legitimate.
What do you mean
That
like how
word
many people are in
legitimate
the
means
camps?
real. How many people that this is happening to? How many people are not even able
What do
to
you
claim asylum
wait, wait,
before they're
wait.
put in
What
cages?
specifically are you asking? How many people are in the concentration camps?
No, no, no. Listen, just listen. I'm asking how many people are put into cages before they get to claim asylum?
Well, that would be all of them, because if they were able to claim asylum, they wouldn't be in concentration camps.
No, they're not all there because they just got claimed up or locked up before they even had to claim asylum. They're not all there because of that. I hate
If
to
they had
break it to
claimed
you, but they're
asylum, they
not.
wouldn't be in a concentration camp, because after you claim asylum, you're given a temporary visa while the state decides whether or not they want to keep you.
Are you assuming that all these people crossing the border are claiming asylum?
We don't know. We're not letting them declare asylum. We don't have a way of knowing because we catch them before they can follow the legal procedure. How are you not getting this? They don't get the chance. We
You're
don't
you're
get to
making this you're
know.
making this assu- you're making the statement that they don't have the chance, but that's not how it all goes down.
Yes, it
That's
is, because
literally
if they had
not.
declared asylum, they would have been given a temporary visa. They aren't being
Exactly.
given
You're
the.
exactly. That statement right there, that statement you made right there was perfect if they
Yes,
actually
but
went
they're
to do
in
it.
the camps. They haven't been allowed to make it to a town where they can declare asylum status.
Listen, you're making the assumption that every single one of these people were
N-
straightway going to an establishment to go claim asylum
These people
when
aren't
that's
being
just
taken. No,
not
the
correct.
people at the concentration camps are not being just taken from, like, for the most part, from American cities. Sometimes ICE like pulls
Yeah,
people from cities, but for the most part, these are
yeah.
people caught at the border. They're caught at the border, not north of the border, where they're after they attempt to declare asylum, before the border, at the border. That is where they're caught. They don't get a chance.
And
The
why and
border
why do
is
you, and why
very
do you think that
big.
why do you think they're being caught? Why do you think? Do you genuinely think that they're just perfectly clean people, nothing wrong with
Why are
them
you?
at all?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What happened to innocent until proven guilty, my dude? You're just like, people are being having UN guidelines violated, and you're like, well, they must be criminals. Whoa, I thought we respected innocent until proven guilty, you little shit.
We do.
How about
We
we
do
let them
respect
know
that.
we're not.
We
No,
do
we're not.
respect
If
that.
you're like, well, they have to be put in concentration camps, do you really think none of them are criminals? I don't know. How about we follow the asylum guidelines to decide whether or not
How
they should
about
be
or
kept in
how
the
about or
country?
how about we how or how about we get to them and find out? How about
We
that? How about
can't
we get to them
until
and
they
find out?
declare. Wait, people at the cages have declared asylum. What has happened to them?
I'm guessing on your basis that they're still there.
Yeah, you think that these people are just at the concentration camps and they could just go like, I declare asylum, they've been let go? No, there are people there who want to declare asylum, who were locked up before they reach the place they are legally required to declare asylum at. You clearly don't know anything about the asylum seeking process or the laws that the United States is violating, but you're very, very keen to assume criminality of the people who are following a legal procedure the US has respected for a
Because
century.
because 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 I'm not here to condone anybody getting locked up without them doing
You
anything wrong.
clearly are, but that's where that. Yes, you are. You can't say like, well, they.
No, I'm
You
not.
really.
When
Wait,
did I
wait,
say that
wait, wait,
once
wait.
then? When did I say
I
that
need you.
once then?
I need you to understand. You can't say, well, do you really think none of these people are criminals, and not condone them being locked up? You're looking for justifications to lock them up, even though you know nothing about these camps. You don't know the demographics of these camps. You don't know the asylum seeking process. You don't know whether or not asylum seekers are let go after declaring the asylum seeking process. You don't know anything about the conditions by which these people are being treated, and you don't know the proportions of the people there that declared asylum. You don't know anything, but you are desperate. You are grasping at straws to find any justification. Trump put them in camps. There must be a good reason. They must be criminals. They must have been caught raping a white woman in El Paso. I'm really sorry to say, my dude, this is just the US violating international law for no good reason. And if you actually believe in innocent until proven guilty, you would have those people let go so they can declare asylum at police stations and follow the legal process that the United States of America not only promised to uphold, but helped draft as a part of the UN Council, that we are now ignoring for no good reason. Illegal immigration is down. They do no harm to our economy. They do less crime than the average person in this country. They contribute economically to this country. There is absolutely no justification, legally, civically, morally, for these people being kept out. But there is an excellent justification if you're a racist, and it's that you don't want brown people in the country.
Man, that was quite a mouthful for you to come down to the general talking point of you're a racist. So
Yeah, it was
let me go
pretty
ahead
easy.
and
You've made it really easy to arrive at that conclusion. Do you not want to
oh,
be a
oh yeah,
racist?
I'm sure when you deny
Deny
the
what?
actual you're denying the fact that the government is actually trying to stop bad people. That's what
You've
you
denied it.
deny.
Wait,
That's what
wait.
it really
By violating UN
premise is.
international law. By violating UN international law and not doing anything to actually separate like the criminals from the non-criminals of the camps. They're not doing anything. Are all Mexicans bad people to you? That's kind of racist, my dude, because they're just keeping everyone from the border. They're not just like
When did I
finding
say that?
criminals.
When did I say that?
Wait,
When
who's
did
the
I say
bad
that?
people?
You're
Wait, who's the bad people? Because they aren't actually determining
criminals.
criminality
They're
at these
criminals.
camps. They're not determining criminality. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? They're locking everyone up. Why do you hate the Constitution, my dude?
When what?
I'm a constitutional
You're jumping
socialist.
all.
Because, dude, because you hate America. What's wrong with you? You hate the international law we drafted. You hate the Constitution.
You're the one that's literally anarchist. You're
Yeah,
literally
because I
so
love
you can't say
America,
that I hate
100%.
America.
Hey, America was founded with a revolution against a tyrannical government, my dude, okay? I'm following in a long line. I'm following the tradition of my forefathers, okay? You're over here like a simpering little fucking loyalist to King George. Well, we're just trying to keep criminals out of the border, even though we have assumed criminality before determining their innocence. And we're just trying to keep bad people out, even though we're arresting all of them.
If we assumed criminality, we wouldn't put them in a cage that's nowhere near the bad lengths of an
Yeah, it
actual
is. You know
prison.
why? Because they haven't met the standard of mea culpa to actually get these people arrested or deported back to Mexico. So they just keep them in camps in a legal gray zone.
Yes, yes, with TVs and hand sanitizers and
Yeah.
electric blankets.
Hand sanitizers and TVs, the things they have at prisons? Oh my god. That's
Not
totally
in your freaking jail
That's
cell.
totally an okay thing to subject people who are innocent, who are following the law to. Dude, have you ever considered do you consider yourself a conservative? Have you considered fascism?
No, I have not because I'm a true conservative who wants to
What does that
keep the
mean to you?
border safe. And I
Wait, how's this keeping the border
What?
safe by just arresting everyone without determining criminality or allowing them to
Literally,
follow the legal process?
okay, hang on. Can I speak without you talking over me just for 1 second, please?
Sure, you just don't have much to
Please.
say other than laughing. So, but yeah, you can go for it.
Well, I'm laughing at all the ridiculous points you're
But you don't
making.
have a counter
So,
argument. Fascinating. Ben Shapiro would be very disappointed.
okay, so here's the thing. Not once have I condoned anybody getting thrown in a cage if they legitimately did not down to the. I mean, literally, I don't know how long it takes whenever you're crossing the border. You know how far a facility is away from wherever you cross the border from. I don't know that, but if they legitimately did not have at the minimum time, if they did not have the minimum time to make it to the facility straight from the border, and they legitimately are not criminals, not have done a thing wrong in their previous life or now.
Wait, criminals ever? Wait, if
Then
a person like jaywalked back in fucking 1988, they can't come to the U.S.?
I'm not saying that they're in the U.S. when they're in the concentration camps.
Wait. So wait, they can never commit a crime ever?
I would consider any crime that you've committed in a previous country. I would consider that being able to have the ability of the U.S. to look back at that and decide, okay, do we want to keep that
Oh, through an asylum
in our country?
process.
Well, through any process, asylum or not.
Well, no, the asylum process is how you do that because that's when the feds look through your records. Like the police can't do that. The Fed
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I know.
by
I know the
allowing
feds
them
have to look through the
to.
records and previous. Yeah, claim asylum. I know. I not once today. Not okay. You cannot bring up one instance where I literally have said, "Yeah, that's okay if we lock them up without them even being able to
You
be able to
oh
claim
oh wait,
asylum."
so okay, so
Not
let's
once
I
did I
mean,
say that.
I understand you're backpedaling, but I'll allow you to do it if you want because I feel bad. So are you saying that if there are people in the concentration camps who are asylum seekers who have not been given a chance to legally declare asylum at a US legal representative, after which they'll be given a temporary visa and their credentials will be asserted by the feds, i.e. the legal process, you would be in favor of that happening?
I would be in favor of them solely being allowed to claim asylum, and I believe that we should also expedite the process.
Sure, we can expedite the process, but in order for them to do that, they need to go to the camps.
But I also don't think that we should let kids out without their parents. I think that's also another
Oh, I
thing.
agree. So
That
we
like
should
if their
stop
parents aren't
separating the
with
kids
them,
from the parents.
depending on what the parents or if they have criminal charges or if they were just not claiming asylum on their own accord, they didn't actually not have time.
Wait, if the if y- if there's a person who comes up and they're an illegal immigrant, you think the state should separate them from their children?
The children didn't do anything wrong.
Wait, if they're caught as an illegal immigrant, they would be deported. Yes? Why not deport the kids with them?
Because generally speaking, I believe that America's concentration camps would be a safer space for these kids. And like I've
That
been
is insane to me. You think separating children from their parents and holding them with no adult supervision at a state sanctioned
because the parent.
concentration
Okay,
camp.
okay. Do you think that the parents aren't going to come back?
If they're in a concentration camp? No, probably not. Do you think they can just return to the camp and go like, "My baby," and like they'll give them their baby? What do you think happens here? The kids are
I'm
separated
not
and those
saying.
kids are fucked. They're wards of the state forever.
Well, and that's the thing that my thing is. Listen, I think you should be deported if you've done something wrong, right?
Wait,
I think that's pretty
if you're
much
an
the premise.
asylum seeker or if you're an illegal immigrant or what?
We both know what I mean by doing something wrong,
No, I
doing something
don't.
criminal.
Oh, wait, like what? But wait, for which group? Asylum seekers or illegal
We're
immigrants?
talking about the parents. I'm talking about the parents of that child. That we're on this discussion about the child.
Asylum
I'm talking
are
about the
they
parents of that
asylum
child.
seekers or illegal immigrants? The parent that we're talking about, have they declared asylum status?
Okay, the parents. Okay, the parents that we're talking about of this kid, if they have had plenty, or not plenty, if they've had any opportunity to claim asylum and they have not,
So illegal
or they
immigrants.
have past criminal, basically yes.
Okay, illegal immigrants. Okay, what about these people?
If an illegal immigrant is here in America, I think that it's fair to deport them without deporting the kids because the kids haven't done anything wrong. It's not of their own accord.
So you think the kids would be better off in in a orphanage leeching off the state than they would be with their parents who they've spent their entire lives with, who they love and cherish more than anything else?
Yep. The foster care system, I believe, needs super bad
Why would you
reform.
take them
So
from your parents? Why? We don't do that for any other crime.
because personally, I believe that they're gonna have a better life here than they would in
Why?
Mexico because that's the whole premise of them coming over here, right?
Yeah, with their parents as a family, not alone as wards of the state.
But truthfully speaking, would you feel better if they went if say they're in a horrible condition, literally dying in Mexico? Let's say that. Would you prefer them to be sent back with their dying family in Mexico
What do you
or
mean dying what
actually be able to have
you mean like their family's in a
if
gunfight like at the moment like they're being
no,
sent
not a
back?
gunfight, not a
But I don't know what you
gunfight.
mean.
I'm
Like
talking
Mexico's a dangerous country, but so are parts of the U.S. A lot of poorer parts of the U.S. are also really fucking dangerous. What do you mean?
Okay, yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But say, okay, listen, if they're coming from Mexico, it's because they find something better in America, right? They see something better in America that they want to achieve.
Uh huh.
I apologize. I'm gonna have to go shortly after this, after we finish this point here. Um, but basically, yes, like that's the whole premise, right? Is if they're coming to America in hopes of something better, then
With their
I
family.
wholeheartedly I wholeheartedly believe that it would be better to have the kids stay in America to still have better
You can
opportunities than going
ask the
back home
Mexican
in
community
poor
that if you
conditions.
want. Nobody will agree with you. And
I mean, it
I guarantee you, if you ask little Mexican babies in Mexico, would you rather live in Mexico with your parents or live in an orphanage in the US? I know what they would answer.
well, sure, yes, everybody's gonna have the affinity to their parents. I don't want to be separated from my parents either, but I also know that, truthfully speaking, wouldn't those parents be more willing to give their kids a better life in Mexico? I mean, in America?
I don't know, because it'd be separating a family. That's one of the most important predictors of family health and of long term well being. And I promise you, the average outcomes for like kid in an orphanage in America are worse than the outcomes of like a family in Mexico. Like,
Yeah,
would you
yeah.
want to be separated from your like? How would you feel if this was happening a different way? Like you and your family when you were a kid, like moved to Sweden, but then your parents like got deported, but they like kept you. Would you rather be with your family in America, or would you rather be in like the state wardship of Sweden? Like, which would be preferable to you?
Well, whichever's the better nation has better opportunities.
You don't. It's so. I think you're looking at this from a very reductive perspective.
I do have to go. I apologize. I would like us to continue this conversation sometime, though, if you ever have the opportunity.
Yeah, no worries. You should look into fascism, because you really like broke your
Gosh.
back trying to find every possible justification for ignoring the mistreatment of black people in the criminal justice system and ignoring the mistreatment of legal asylum seekers at the southern border. I'm just saying, like, I debate a lot of fascists. It's totally okay. Like, I'll still like we can still have a fun convo. I think that a lot of Republicans are turning that direction anyway, so you'll be in good company.
Yeah, yeah, yes. I'm sure if you want to declare fascist, then that's fine.
Yeah,
You have every right to call whatever you want. You know.
because we live in a free country. But if only the people at the
Exactly.
border knew that. All right,
Well, you know.
have a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. You too.
All right. Holy shit.